Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. If you haven't already, in the chat, there is a link that's been dropped where you can sign in for today. So if you click on that link, that would be great. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, Amanda. Okay, if you haven't already signed in, again, that link is in the chat. David, it may be that we need to drop that again for Amanda, if you want
you.
to.
Okay. Amanda, if you don't see that, just let me know and I'll put it up there again.
And then if you would, please just let's unmute and just let you share, if you would, your grade level, what year you started Amplify at your school, and whether or not you have given this end of unit assessment before for K or for 1, just so we kind of know the range of experience. Jennifer, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would go first. So I'm teaching first grade, and this is actually my first year with Amplify for me personally. So I guess this year, and then, I've never given this assessment, so I was like, this would be perfect.
Okay, great. What school are you at, Jennifer?
Sandersville Elementary.
Sandersville, awesome. Okay, thank you very much. And then Renee, would you share with us where you are and your experience with Amplify?
Yeah, sure. Is this our 3rd year? I was trying to remember when it start, because I've
2019. Yeah.
It depends if you want to count last year or not.
I'm gonna count every year. No. So I've been there since the beginning, right? But I taught first grade the first 2 years, and now I'm teaching kindergarten this year. So I, did the assessment in first grade, but I have not given the assessment in kindergarten, since this is my first year in teaching kindergarten. I'm at Cardinal Valley Elementary.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Amanda, can you unmute and share with us? Where you are. I see Amanda's joining from her phone. I'm not sure if she can let us know or not. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I'll share with you what our thoughts are on this session today. And we do want to really tailor this to your questions and things as well. So please feel free at any time to stop me, ask any questions that you've got. You can either drop those into the chat or just unmute and say, hey, wait a minute, Patty. I am Patty Works, and I'm a former Fayette County teacher. I taught at Yates and at Cardinal Valley. And before that, I taught in Paris, Kentucky. Always fun to say I used to teach in Paris. But I'm happy to be here joining you, and I've been helping with Amplify's implementation here in Fayette County for the last few years, as well as some other places around the country. So, and David, do you want to say hello?
Hello. How you all doing? I'm glad you could join us. It's kind of nice with the small sessions, like your own little personal session. So feel free at any time just to come off mute if you've got a question. I know with these assessments for the first time, especially for kindergarten and first grade, it's a little different because it's an oral assessment. So and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so glad you can make it. I know it's been a long day.
Okay, so here's the direction that we're going to be taking in this session today. First of all, we're just going to look at where you can find the assessment and the assessment guide and talk a little bit about with this kindergarten and first grade assessment, what are you really listening for in student discussion and looking for in student work if they have a related project that's going along with this. And then we'll talk a little bit about what a strong answer looks like for this three-dimensional assessment. And we'll talk about some things that K and 1 have in common together first, and then we'll take a quick look at the kindergarten assessment and the first grade assessment after that. And again, stop us anytime you've got questions. If you've been in other grade levels before, like Renee, you may know that you can always find where the assessment system document is on that main unit page to look up the summative assessment or the end of unit assessment questions. In some grade levels, if you ever are moved to a different grade level or whatever, there may be more than one end of unit assessment. It may be broken into two parts. That is not the case for any of the kindergarten, first and second grade units. All of them have one end of unit assessment, and it's all done orally. So you see here for kindergarten, if you go into the platform and find that end of unit assessment document, there is a table that shows chronologically everything that's listed, every formative assessment, the critical juncture assessments at the end of each progress build level. Those are all listed in order. And so once you see that, you can find that the fourth grade, the lesson 4.4 is where the kindergarten's assessment questions are. And you can see here that there's possible student responses that are listed there. There's an assessment guide with some rubrics as well. And then also in first grade, your first assessment also happens to be in lesson 4.4. You can often find where that end of unit assessment is too by just going into the platform, going to the last chapter and clicking the last lesson in each of those categories for us. So I'm going to show you just a second going into the Amplify platform. Let me go back to the beginning here. Those things that I just was mentioning. Okay, so for instance, with first grade, if you were looking at animal and plant defenses, when you open up that main unit page, if you click jump down to unit guide, down in the teacher references section is where you find that assessment system tab. And when you open that, it has a table that will show you all of the assessments. So I'm just going to show you quickly where that is. The first page or two of the assessment system document is sort of some front matter about the different types of things that are there to help with assessments. And then it starts with the assessment opportunities. So you see here in lesson 1.1 is the pre-unit assessment. Then there's an on-the-fly assessment in lesson 1.2, activity 1. And again, if you're new to Amplify, those on-the-fly assessments are just quick checks telling you what to look for as, for instance, in this case, students are reading and discussing tortoise parts. So it's not some sort of a stop, drop, and assess opportunity. It is just a natural, unobtrusive part of the instruction. But as you continue on down through that table, when you get towards the end of it, you'll see, let me scroll through here. You can see all the assessments as they come along, and then eventually you'll get to that end of unit assessment on 4.4. So this is what we saw in that screenshot. So that's how you get there for the end of unit assessment. And again, you can see that in in both kindergarten and first grade, those are the very last lesson. Once you get there, a couple of things to know. All of the end of unit assessments in kindergarten and first grade are performance-based oral assessments. They may be in conjunction with a project, like for instance, in needs of plants and animals, they are actually designing a little garden where they are gluing and putting things into a garden, and then they'll be describing why monarchs might come back to that garden based upon the arrangement they've made in their garden, as well as answering some other questions. And in first grade, students have created their own animal that they're describing different structures and how they help the animal survive. So they've got a project that they're going to be talking about in conjunction with the questions too. And one thing, if you have looked at the assessments on the Amplify platform, it talks about the end of unit assessments being individual interviews with students. David is very comfortable with you conducting those discussions in small groups. As much as you are already formatively assessing students all the time as they're working, we think that you're really going to be comfortable with being able to evaluate students, asking them questions in small groups and getting them to build off of each other's comments. David, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. It's one of those things, you all, where I could walk into Amanda's or Danelle's or Jennifer's or Renee's classroom and ask you, well, how's Patty doing in science? And I'm very, very confident that any of you could say, oh, well, Patty's doing really well with this, but Patty's kind of struggling here. So it really, at this point in the game, the idea of the oral assessment is just a discussion and kind of a clarification of your thinking of where the kids are. And we've sent out the rubrics for you guys to use. I'm sure Patty will talk about those in a bit. And just be very honest with the students in the rubrics. We know this year and this morning in district leadership, even Dr. Liggins, everybody's very, very aware of the year that we had last year and how our kids are struggling as compared to previous years. And that's okay. We know that. We know we've got a big job ahead of us, and it's going to take some time. So, just be honest with where they are and where we need to go, and it'll be just fine.
So continuing on here, I'm going to show you, for example, in kindergarten, this is where you find those assessment questions if you haven't seen those before. They're going to be on the right-hand side in lesson 4.4 under digital resources. So you see that arrow there is indicating for you where they are in the digital resources. And once you click to open up the assessment questions, you're going to see that the list of questions is divided into 3 groups to help make this assess all 3 dimensions of the NGSS standards. So you see that we're starting out with the science content questions about plant and animal needs. And so there's a heading up here. Your science content questions take up about half the page there. And those are the questions that you want to make sure students can answer that will help you have a window of understanding into what science concepts they've developed.
Patty, I hate to interrupt you, but can you show me, go back, because I'm on my other computer trying to follow you,
Sure.
and I got lost somewhere. I can't find that. Where do I go?
Okay, you go back to, it's in lesson 4.4, and I can go live on the platform. Let me show you, okay? I'm in plant and animal defenses right now, but let's say if I'm back here in kindergarten and I'm on the needs of plants and animals unit. Once that unit page opens up, It's in the very last lesson of the last chapter. So when you click on chapter 4 and then scroll down, there's the end of unit assessment. And when you open that lesson page, you'll see that down in the digital resources, right down here are the end of unit assessment questions.
Thank you.
You bet, you bet. And so then when you look at those end of unit assessment questions, I'm just going to open them up live there. The first half are about, the first part are about science content that you're asking them. You're stating to them, you know, we've learned a lot about what plants and animals need to live and grow, how did we've made choices about what to put into the garden to make sure that it's a place where monarch caterpillars can get what they need. So what plants did you choose to put into the garden? Then it's going to prompt you to ask them, why is this garden a place where monarch caterpillars can live? And then the next question down here is saying that monarch caterpillars can live in a garden if they have milkweed to eat. And then it goes on to ask them, what does milkweed need to live and grow? And how does it get those things? And then last, if the milkweed is growing, how do you know it's growing? So those questions are the ones that deal with the science ideas about plant and animal needs within the assessment. And again, they will have made a little model of a garden where they have little pieces that can be cut out and glued in, and you're going to be seeing whether or not they've included milkweed in their garden plan there. And then describing. The second section of the questions, there's a question to try to get at whether they're understanding that all of the plant parts work together. And so that's dealing with the cross-cutting concept of systems and system models and how things within a system interact with each other. So the question that we're asking them there is, we can see in this picture that the plant has parts over and under the soil. How do the plant parts help it get what it needs? And I'll show you in just a second. In the rubric, there's a little bit more guidance with some additional things that will show you exactly what you want them to be asking there. And then the science and engineering practice, here are the questions that you're going to ask them. Throughout the unit, it's been prompting you in the lessons to talk about how scientists record data, like starting out with that very first science walk book. Their teachers recording data about the things they see on their walk. And then she's organizing those into groups. Well, that same focal science and engineering practice about analyzing data carries on throughout the whole unit. And so then you ask students to think back, realizing that one important thing students do is record what they observe by drawing and writing about it. So tell me a time during this unit when we were doing that, when we were recording our observations. And then asks them, how did recording what you observed help you answer a question? And so those are the kinds of questions that you want to be asking of students leading up to the very end of the unit over and over again. I mean, for example, these questions about recording data, I would be thinking about trying to embed those in lessons the whole time that you're, you know, when you're teaching things, when they sort the cards in the beginning with plants and animals into different groups, and then you record on the board some of the different grouping ways. You could just all along be saying, so how did that help us answer the question that we were trying to figure out today?
Sorry to interrupt one more time. Where do we find those pictures?
Those are in the lesson, in the workbook pages, I think. Let's see, here we go. Garden plan, right down here in that digital resources column 2, the garden planter plan copy master. There's the little blank plan of what they're going to put in there.
Yeah, I found that, but I didn't find the pictures.
Okay, let me go back and see. Those must be,
Yeah, because I saw it like on the PowerPoint and I saw
here
the
we go.
planter, but
This is back on the preceding lesson, 4.3,
okay.
because that's where they're starting to talk about what they're going to put into the garden. And there's the Milkweed Plants Card Copy Master, and there's the Plants Card Copy Master as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now keep coming with the questions. That's really, that's why we're here, to make sure that folks know where things are. So again, those questions are broken into those 3 different categories: plant and animal needs, systems and system models, and then science and engineering practices about recording data. So after you've asked those questions, realize that also in this last lesson, 4.4, in the digital resources, there's also an assessment guide that gives some more definition to what it is you're hoping kids are able to say. And there will be 3 little rubrics that are included there, just like your questions are divided into science concepts. Do they understand how the parts of a system work together? And do they understand about recording data? Those same 3 rubrics are there to help you. And so here you see, I just cut and pasted rubric 1 there. Like this is showing you, for instance, this gives more definition to that second question. In the questions that they were asking about plant and animal needs, one of them is, let's see, what does milkweed need to live and grow, and how does it get it? So this is just showing you, for instance, that second question, you're hoping that they can explain it needs water to live and grow, that the roots are the part that help get water from the soil around it, and that it needs light to live and grow, and that its leaves are helping them. And so the question says, what does milkweed need to live and grow, and how does it get it? So you may want to, say what parts of the plant are actually helping it get water? What parts of the plant are helping it get light? How do those parts help the whole plant work together? And then the second rubric is looking at the systems and system models. And the third rubric is looking at, were they able to describe drawing or writing something that was some sort of data that they recorded and observed? And did they describe or record that as helping them answer a question because it helped them remember, it helped them have things written down so they could compare or share their ideas? Those are the things that you're hoping to see in their answers. So those rubrics just give a little bit more definition to the amount of detail that you want kids to have in there. There's also, after those 3 rubrics, some examples of what they would consider a nice, accurate student response. So those same questions are repeated there, and then it shows you samples of what students might answer. So that all of those things are in the assessment guide that's in the digital resources on that last lesson. I'm going to go back in there just 1 second and show you on that last page again. Going back to lesson 4.4, all those things that we just looked at are from the assessment guide. And that's where in the assessment guide, it gives you some foreground information. There's rubric 1 that gives you a little bit more detail about what you hope they can tell you about the science concepts. Here's rubric 2. Whoops, I went past it. There's rubric 3 about recording data. And then that following page is where it gives you some sample responses that would be accurate. You know, and they're fairly simple. You know, the caterpillars can live in the garden because the milkweed they need is here. Milkweed needs water and light. It gets water from the soil around it with its roots. It gets light when the light hits its leaves. Okay, so that's where you find the assessment guide. And then I want to share with you next, and you probably have seen this at your school, but David went through and developed a really nice version of the an assessment rubric to help you just sort of quantify where kids are with things. So when you look at those questions that go with the science concepts, you're going to look and either say, I'd give this student a 3. They really answered things coherently and they were giving all the details that are listed here. They've got it, or they're getting it. They had part of the answer, or not yet, or they would rate a 0 if they weren't able to really give you any sort of response at all to those questions regarding the science concepts. Then the same thing here for got it, getting it, not yet, for the cross-cutting concept, and for recording and analyzing data there. Now, back the first fall of 2019, we turned into the district common assessment scores, and that is not required this fall. But we really hope that you'll go ahead and collect the data, take a look at your data as a class. And David, do you want to say anything about that rubric and just some suggestions about how valuable that could be for PLCs to look at?
Sure. Hopefully you guys have gotten a copy of this. If you don't have a copy, just shoot me an email and I'll be more than happy to send it to you, as well as the teacher score sheets. With those, they automatically calculate student averages and things like that. So you're really just putting in an individual score for each student for each dimension. And what that will do is it gives you a really good idea of, okay, where are the kids? What are they getting? And what are they struggling with? And to be very, very honest with you, this time around, we're only in October. We've not been here long yet. You'll see a lot of 1s and 2s, and that's okay. You know, that is okay. I mean, I've been in classrooms, and I was in a second grade classroom the other day where, you know, we were still struggling with a student to get their last name out of them. So, you know, they're just not used to being in school yet. A lot of them missed a year last year. So that's just part of being honest with ourselves, but also giving us the information in our PLCs of, gee, you know, they're getting science concepts, but they're struggling with cross-cutting concepts or with practices. So it's a real valuable thing. And Patty and I are happy to join those discussions if you like.
Where did you have that rubric again?
Those I sent out to science reps, but if you want me to send it to you, Renee, I can sure do that.
Oh, please do. Yeah, that's really helpful.
And you're kindergarten, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not a problem.
Thank
And
you.
if
Sure.
the rest of y'all want one, just let's say either you can tell me now or just email me. That's probably the safest bet.
Okay. And so this is sort of the conclusion of talking about the kindergarten rubric, and we're going to go into looking at first grade now. So are there any more questions about the kindergarten assessment at this point before we go? Amanda, I see you answered yes. Do you need a copy of the rubric too?
Yes, please.
Okay.
What grade level do you need, Amanda?
First,
First? Okay, you got it.
thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go ahead and take a look at the first grade rubric. And again, it's just coincidence that these both wound up in lesson 4.4, but it's the very last lesson in first grade. And following that same pattern, the assessment questions and the assessment guide are both going to be in the digital resources for that lesson. So it's the very last lesson, and you are talking with students about their animals and models. So again, in the Amplify version of the overview, it discusses this being a one-on-one conversation between the teacher and the individual students, but you may even want to do this. I think there are a couple different opportunities you could do it. You could ask some of these questions as they're working on and making their models. In a lesson preceding this, they have shared models together with their classmates to talk about what structures these animals have that would help them survive. You could be, as you walk around talking with students and they're making their models, you could be asking many of these questions. And then also, David's even suggested if you have a small group of kids pulled over for a reading group or something already, you could go ahead and take advantage of that opportunity to ask some of these assessment questions as you're working. And again, like the kindergarten example that we saw, when you pull up the end of unit assessment questions, they're divided into 3 categories. And just like the standards have those 3 dimensions. So you've got science content questions about defenses for survival, and there's several of questions there. Then there are questions about structure and function, which has been a big sense-making tool all the way through this unit. And then they've been working on constructing models and thinking about only including essential parts in models. And so that's where your end of unit assessment questions come in again too. So just to, well, sometimes on Zooms, I keep having my screen freeze when I'm presenting there. I'm not able to pull up, and I was going to go to the platform there and see. There we go. Well, maybe I'll stop sharing and that will help, I think. Okay, and I'll try it again. Go into the platform. No, that's not what I wanted to do. I can't get out of that. Sorry, I've got all this craziness going on. Okay, there we go. Maybe now I can go back to. I'm sorry, I can't get it to come out of the Google Slides, David, to be able to go to the screen and read those questions. So I'm just going to pause and let you all, if you would, first grade teachers, if you would like to take a look at those, you can go to lesson 4.4 and we can talk through those a little bit. So in those questions, it starts out under the science questions here asking, it says, we've learned a lot about how animals and plants survive when there are other animals that try to eat them. We've chosen to model one ocean animal to help show aquarium visitors how that animal defends itself from predators. I'm going to ask you to explain to me, just like you might explain to a visitor who does not know much about your animal, how that ocean animal survives. I also want you to explain how your model shows how that happens. So then you ask them, what animal did you choose to model? And then say that the animal that you chose lives in the ocean where there are other animals that would try to eat it. So how is it going to survive with those animals around so that they can describe their different defenses? Then there are follow-up questions if you want to continue to probe more for things that students didn't mention. What does the animal that you chose need to do to survive? And how does the animal that you chose defend itself from predators? So you can probe to get more information from them. And then there's questions that say this animal had an offspring and it grew up to be an adult. Picture that adult offspring in your mind. What would it look like? So asking them to think about how that offspring might have some of those same structures when it was grown. Does the offspring survive in the same way that the parent does? And why do you think so? Okay, and then the cross-cutting concept section is asking them to look at structure and function again. You made a model to show how this animal defends itself from animals that might eat it. How does your model show the way it's going to defend itself? And why is this structure good for keeping your animal from being eaten? And then last, they've been working on constructing models that include essential elements. And so you prompt the students to describe what they did and did not include in their model. So say that we've learned that scientists like us only include things in their models that are important for explaining how something works or happens. What did you make sure to include in your model? And then what did you not include in your model? Because it's not important for showing how your animal defends itself. Okay, and then again, you have an assessment guide that's right there where the assessment questions are in the digital resources on 1.4, 4.4, I mean. And that assessment guide has got 3 rubrics. The first one matches the science concept questions. The second one goes with the structure and function cross-cutting concept questions. And the third rubric gives you a little bit more detail about modeling. And so there you see the questions that match each of those particular sections, the science concept, structure and function, and constructing models. So you can look and see, for instance, in the rubric 1, did they explain the fact that their animal needs to not be eaten to survive? Not only does it need, food, water, air, but it also needs to not be eaten. And then did the student accurately describe the defense structure and how it could help defend the animal? Did the student describe the adult offspring as looking similar, but maybe not identical to the parent and having the same structures? And did the student explain that because the adult offspring had the same structures, it will survive by defending itself in the same way? Okay, then questions for structure and function to see if they can apply what they've made in their model and describe how it would help it survive. And last, then questions there to identify what they included and what they did not include based on which things they considered essential elements. Okay, any questions, first grade folks? Okay, and then again, after those 3 rubrics, After those 3 rubrics, you're going to see some sample possible accurate student responses. They're in that same assessment system document right after you get to that. And then there's a rubric again for being able to look at the students' answers in those 3 categories and rate them as either they've got it, they're getting it, or not yet. And so here's the science concepts, and here's the structure and function rubric. The models is on a page 2 here. So that's a 2-page document when you're looking at that first grade rubric. Okay, and that now I go to click and it exited right out of there. So frustrating. Anybody have any ideas why that's happening? You guys are way smarter on Zoom than I am. I'm used to using Google Meets a lot of times. So I don't know. That never happens on a Google Meet with me where I can't escape out of it. It only happens on Zooms. So any questions, guys? I'll go ahead and go into the first grade again, just to show you where things are. Once you're on first grade, again, when you go in there, there's your 4 chapters. And if you want to get to that last lesson, click on chapter 4, and there it says end of unit assessment. And your digital resources are along that right-hand column where you can get to the end of unit assessment questions and the assessment guide. And then David's rubric, if you haven't had that sent to you, we'll be happy to do that. Guys have questions or comments here? Or any of you that have given the assessment before that want to share your experiences? I do know David has mentioned several times that he thinks it's often most difficult for students to maybe answer some of the cross-cutting concept questions. I'm not as sure that that would be true on structure and function here as it probably really is on systems and system models when you're asking kindergartners to think about how do the roots and the leaves work together as a system. That's a little, that's some good critical thinking for kindergartner. How are you guys getting close to the point where you're going to be giving the assessments?
We aren't too far off.
And this will be, Renee, where you were in first grade previously. You know, the ideas about it being an oral assessment that's often based around them helping to describe a project to you. That's very similar.
Yes.
Jennifer or Amanda, any questions, guys? David, do you have anything else you'd like to add or like me to share or go into?
I think we're in pretty good shape. It sounds like they, are pretty comfortable with it. It's, it's a little bit different, but it's for me, it's just an opportunity to talk with the kids, and I really enjoy doing this. It's fun and it's very, very informative. So I have fun with them. It's definitely a low stress, no stress kind of deal. So, but
What
other-
was the time frame? Sorry, what was the time frame that you had? I'm trying to remember. I had it written down, but I can't find it right this second. That we like to give the end of the unit.
Initially, Renee, it was the end of October, like the last week of October was the initial date to have data turned in. Now, if you're a little bit behind that, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, on the pacing guides, I believe the first unit goes up to like the second or third week in October. Pat, looks like Patty's looking at it right now.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get
Oh.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But again, it's one of those things, we know this year is a little slower than previous years. So if you're a little behind, that's okay.
Here we go. Okay, so science, kindergarten. The pacing guide is right here on the navigator page that David has developed, and the original plan.
Oh, I guess it's my bad. I was thinking third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah, right. Because K and 1 have just got those 3 units.
Right.
So it's on the pacing guide for you to be finishing that around middle of November there. And
That's what I was thinking. When he said October, I was like, oh, we're not, we're like
Yeah.
halfway, so that's good.
Yeah, no, there's 4 units in, you know, third, fourth, and fifth. So then they wrap theirs up a little bit more rapidly. And then your second
Okay.
unit, the pushes and pulls, runs through February and starting
Oops.
sunlight and weather in March.
Sorry, Renee.
Thanks so much. No worries. I mean, we're right on schedule then.
Awesome.
Anybody have any other questions or comments? First grade, I believe your timing on the units is very
It's-
similar.
Yeah, it's the
Mhm.
same.
Right, through November and then through the end of February. Okay, any other questions, folks? If not, please realize David and I are happy to come out and help you. We have been making visits to schools that have signed up. And if your school hasn't mentioned that yet or whatever, and you would like for us to come out, we're happy to come and join with you and talk with your grade level team or talk with you if you would like help as you get ready to start planning for Unit 2 or as you approach the assessment. Please feel free to contact me or David and we'll get a time worked out that we could come join you. And like David said, it's no stress. It's just to provide support and let you know you've got people there to help answer questions and guide you through. So.
Will you all do another PD maybe like in November where we discuss Unit 2, just so that maybe any kind of good information that we could know, since like I said, I hadn't taught the kindergarten, it'd be very helpful if you had another like our PD, right, like mid-November, right before we're getting ready to start, you know, the new unit and, you know, give us some little tips and things like that.
I think that's a great idea. Don't you, David?
Yeah, we can sure do that, Renee. And then also there's, if you've been to the YouTube channel or to the hub, they now have orientation videos for each unit.
Yeah. Let me show
Oh,
you.
that's right. I remember
for
from our
the-
last
yeah.
one.
Right, and now on the Amplify platform too, as well as on the Fayette County Teaching and Learning channel, if you click on the little program hub icon up here in the corner, and then scroll down to the little chart tablet and go there. Once that opens up, that's the same place that the remote and hybrid learning resources were last year. But if you go to this additional unit materials tab and click on your grade level, then it will, if say for instance, you're ready to start pushes and pulls, when you click on that unit, there's a tab here that says unit orientation. And there's a short little 10-minute video that will orient you to pushes and pulls.
Will you go back where it was in the beginning,
You bet.
where you got to there?
Let me go all the way back. Okay, first thing I did was click those 3 lines on the global navigation icon, and then you scroll all the way down through the icons that you have in that little digital drawer and click on the Science Program Hub. And then once you get there, it's in additional unit materials. And you select your grade level. And then once you select the unit, then you hit the unit orientation tab, and the video will be right there.
Thanks so much.
You bet, sure. There's also read aloud videos that are here. Some unit extension ideas, if anybody wants that, and hands-on investigation videos. I'm just going to open that up to show you while you're here if you're interested in seeing. The hands-on investigation videos are really nice for giving students a visual, and sometimes for teachers a visual too, of exactly what it is that you're wanting kids to do in an activity. And they are set to music, so there's no language barrier as far as a student not understanding what happens. But with young students and with ELL students, there really can be helpful because you can see what it is that you want kids to be doing as they manipulate the materials. But it shows you just how to set up things, which with that box model might be helpful to see too. So those are an interest, those are a nice thing to recognize are there. Those little hands-on investigation videos are also, there are read aloud videos, and those can be nice for students to be able to listen to. Those are in English and in Spanish. So you can select what's best for your students or your class, and they can hear the books in the unit read out loud. And so there'll be a real teacher there in the corner of the screen talking with them and sharing the pages of the book as it flips electronically. Also, back on where you're new, I'm thinking for anybody who is new to the grade level or new to Amplify, if you go back on the main program hub where we have those 3 buckets of information there too, if you click on the remote and hybrid learning resources, and then again, click on your grade level, you're going to see several different tabs that open up here once you click on your unit. And the same thing, the read aloud videos and the hands-on investigation videos are also housed there. But these at-home videos show each of the lessons on the platform being taught remotely by a teacher and a real Amplify teacher. So you can click on that particular lesson and you can see, it has a real teacher talking the students through the slides and through the lesson. And these can be really helpful if a student is out for a period of time or is sick just for a day or two. But you can cut and paste the link to that YouTube video and send that home in a Google Classroom or however you are sending assignments to parents. So there's lots of benefits to those. Those are also really good for a substitute. For instance, if you were wanting to teach a science lesson and you have to be out for a couple of days, you could leave just the link to these at-home videos there for your substitute who could project and play that video. And then it prompts you to stop at certain points and look around you and peek out the window and see what you see that might be a plant or an animal. It gives you directions where it will tell you to pause the video. A great thing about these at-home videos is that all students need is a paper and pencil to be able to complete the activities. So a substitute can walk them through that pretty easily too, and then you wouldn't lose momentum if you were wanting to continue with your science lessons during a time you were absent. Any other questions about things? I was just thinking it might be helpful to see some of those.
Thank you. That was really helpful. I have one more question.
Sure.
When I was teaching, and again, I'm just getting used to all the materials and things like that. And we were in unit, let me see. We were in, chapter 2, 2.2, and we were looking at, okay, let me pull up the slides because it's just easier for me to go from there if that's okay.
Okay, this was in kindergarten, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Chapter 2, lesson 2.2.
Yes.
Okay.
And hold on, my thing's taking just a second to pull up. I'm opening up the PowerPoint. Okay, so we were talking about the plant growth and parts of plants and all of that. And then down here, okay, a scientist recorded pictures of a plant growing. We will try to put the pictures in order. Do we have those pictures like physically in our box? Are they supposed to be in there?
Let me look at the set of slides and see.
It's on slide 12.
Okay.
Because it says you will put the cards in order on this notebook page.
It may be in their investigation notebook page there.
You could be right. And I just didn't think to look there because I was looking in the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
And
okay, let me go back to the lesson and see. I bet that's on the investigation notebook page.
well, I don't have it right here in front of me, so you just let me know if it's there.
There's the plant growth sequencing mat. That was in the, here we go, plant growth cards copy master.
And where is that?
Okay, I'm on that lesson 2.2, and right here's where we pull down the slides. And if you look in the digital resources down below there, it says plant growth cards copy master. There's the plant growth cards.
Okay, so I have to print that.
It appears that you may print those. They may be in your kit. I'll have to look and see. I can check on that and see if it's supposed to be in your kit. The plant growth
Right.
already printed. Just a sec, let's go back and look. So if we're back on that main unit page, and we're wanting to check to see what's in there. If you go to this unit materials and preparation page,
Hold on, you lost me. Where do I go?
okay, I went back to that main unit page, needs of plants and animals.
Okay,
And then there's a document, open printable materials and preparation. This is a
Materials
unit document. Yeah, see, under materials and preparation, I'm just opening this document so it's in a more readable, wider format. But so that's where I got this materials and preparation unit document. But this shows you items that are provided in the needs of plants and animals kit. So that's what I'm looking to see, if those cards are printed and in there. Print materials. And that was for lesson 2.2, did you say?
mm-hmm.
It does not look like they are. It looks like you must print those.
Okay,
Because I don't see how it tells you what lesson they are here. I don't see one for 2.2, so it must be that you print those.
we just drew them, but because I was like, looking for them, and you just make decisions, and I was like, okay, so I divided up their paper and we drew each stage, which is fine, and we labeled them, the different parts, but I'm glad, because I didn't know, I'm looking everywhere and don't know where to find, and again, I'm just learning, so it was no worries. I just thought there would be cards, because on the the PowerPoint, it looks like there's cards.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it's because they're gluing them into their notebook that's why they're not a hard card.
Right.
In general, if it's a card that they just sort and discuss and talk about, it's probably printed and they're in your kit. If it's something they're going to glue into order on a notebook or something, it's probably just a printable one for you to sequence.
Okay. Thank you for your help. I appreciate it.
Sure, you bet. You bet. Okay, any other questions?
I think we're good, Patty. And Renee, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to shoot Patty down an email or give us a call or whatever. That's fine.
Thanks so much.
Okay,
You're most
you bet.
welcome.